Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the HOLESTIC METHOD. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hello, my favorite low-carb aging athletes. I just wanted to share with you a special coupon code that I have from one of my favorite supplements, Bio-Optimizers. Bio-Optimizers has some great products that I often recommend to my health coaching clients based on their nutritional therapy analysis and their functional labs and food log symptoms that we look at. And a few of those are from Bio-Optimizers called HCL Breakthrough, Gluten Guardian, Magnesium Breakthrough, Capex, and their Masszymes enzymes, which is the strongest enzyme formula ever. And it has 5 different kinds of protease. Often we don't digest our food properly. So we are what we eat, but we also are what we can properly break down and absorb. So learn more from Bio-Optimizers. Check out their website and use our code LowCarbAthlete next time you go to purchase something. Enjoy.
Hey there, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm doing a new solo podcast today to go into specific topics that I'm hearing more about and talking more about with my coaching clients as I focus on helping the driven, ambitious, high-charging, high-performing athlete of all levels. You know, you don't have to be a competitive endurance athlete, but just, if you exercise. I know a lot of you struggle with GI symptoms, with low energy, with chronic stress, resulting with findings on our functional lab testing, as I do Dutch tests with most people. A GI test is Genova Diagnostics or GIMAP, and looking at food zoomers through Vibrant Wellness, HTMA, hair tissue mineral test, and really looking at blood chemistry to see correlations into or clues into other things we want to investigate as parasite, infection, H. pylori, maldigestion, all of this. I just want to take a moment today and dive into chronic stress. As I've been talking more and more about chronic stress impacts the whole you. If you know my story, it's on Amazon in a book called Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey, and kind of how the holistic method evolved from my years of being a personal trainer, a coach for triathlons and marathon runners and cyclists, as a competitive athlete myself. Personal training people 2-3 times a week wasn't working. And I realized I wanted to help people. I want to see results. And I could not get results with my clients just training them 2-3 times a week and not knowing, how's your sleep? What are you eating? When are you eating? How are you eating? How is your stress every day? What else is going on? Because all these things impact your ability to burn fat, impact your overall health, impact your performance. So if you are an endurance athlete struggling to get the desired results as lose weight, get faster, get stronger, get leaner, and hopefully looking at aging gracefully, looking best your second half of your life and thriving every day instead of struggling, that's what I do. That's where my passion is. And that's what I'm focusing on finally in my career last couple of years. Got rid of my fitness studio 2019 after 10 years of focusing on that. But I really always wanted to do this. Help you, people that are similar to me, driven and ambitious, type A, AAA, that thrive with more is better. And we need to realize that Goldilocks effect, not too much of everything, because too much of something can cause toxicity, imbalances, but also too little of some things will cause deficiency. So we need to figure out the right amount, and that's so unique to you. So chronic stress impacts all of our efforts. So if you're exercising all the time, you're training, you're taking all these supplements, you're trying to work on your nutrition, you're fasting, but what if it backfires? What is going on under the hood? We need to investigate. So let's just touch on today a little bit here. I'm just taking a break between clients because I really wanted to dive into this. If we do a Dutch test, we're looking at different patterns. It's not just cortisol, melatonin, your hormones, but we see patterns. And within the Dutch test, we see patterns. As you can listen to my recent podcast with Dr. Kelly Roof from Dutch test. And then my HTMA results I did with Ryan Monahan, talking about that. Also with upgraded formulas, founder Barton Scott. Now there's lots of correlations externally and internally that we see result of chronic stress. But it's not just one thing, as we keep saying. Your hypothalamus talks to the pituitary gland and sends a signal to your adrenal glands when to respond to a threat. And if that messaging gets overused, so to speak, if we continue to just relay that message, stress, 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 react, react, react. Well, same thing with insulin. If we eat too much sugar, carbohydrates constantly, we get insulin resistance. Same thing with, I think, of adrenal issues are more that hypothalamus to pituitary to adrenal, called HPA axis, gets to be dysfunctional. And we start to have high cortisol in the beginning, kind of so-called adrenal fatigue in the old days. And then we continue to go, we get into the compensatory phase where our cortisol is now low. We're not able to respond to that threat. But also we see this correlation with thyroid issues when we have adrenal issues, because the hypothalamus talks to the pituitary gland, also sends a signal to your gonads, your ovaries for women, and men, testosterone, their hormones. But then also HPA is adrenals, HPT is thyroid. So our body is super intelligent. We talk about that innate intelligence all the time. And if we have a threat, something to threatening our life, as running from that saber-toothed tiger is always that analogy, we are putting everything else on hold. So we also talk often that there's no filter of where that stress is coming from. For me, it was running my fitness studio and trying to always get new clients in the door, trying to make everybody happy, trying to always reinvent new programs, new health fairs, new challenges, new classes. New clients always had to come in the door, and we had to keep the current ones happy, which was fun. But then I had the constant stress of doing that and paying the bills. I had a huge rent because I was in downtown Bellevue, Microsoft area of Bellevue, Washington. And that was increasing every January 1st. My rent went up, that 3 to 5% raise. So I had constant stress from that. But on top of that, I was exercising all the time, racing at high level. I was doing Ironmans, marathons, trail running, cycling events. I was racing year round. But that was my happy place. That's where I thrived every day. That's where I did de-stress. But my body didn't know that, because that was on top of financial stress, top of working too much, on top of eating too little. I was too serious of keto for my exercise energy output. I was exercising probably 20 hours a week. Plus I was moving all day, teaching classes, training clients. I wasn't sitting still at a desk like I'm doing now at a computer. So my body had probably that low energy availability. I got into fasting a long time ago. It's easier just to have fat coffee and just feel like, I don't need to eat, less decision-making fatigue of what you have to cook for that meal. And so I ended up doing one meal a day. So anyways, chronic stress accumulates. So let's go over some information I have from our FDN practitioner program. What we talk about with our clients as an FDN practitioner are causes of high cortisol. So if your Dutch test shows results of high cortisol, possible reasons for high cortisol production include stress, infections, pain, inflammation, obesity, insulin, glucose issues, low carb diet. For athletes, I think it's going too low of diet, so your body is stressed, especially for the female athlete. And then Cushing syndrome is very rare, but possible as well. So cortisol function as an anti-inflammatory. So, you get cortisone shots if you have injury. Cortisol is active, cortisone's inactive. So if we're getting cortisol functions as increasing for anti-inflammatory. It's trying to put out that fire. It's trying to reduce inflammation. But the three main causes of inflammation can be a result of the food we eat, pathogens, those hidden internal sources of chronic stress, and toxins that are in our environment, in our products we're using, in our products' household cleaning ingredients. They're everywhere. So another reason why I do what I do to look at the whole athlete, the whole client. So what causes inflammation from food? Well, we know gluten for most people is inflammatory marker. Dairy, especially cow dairy that's processed, pasteurized, is inflammatory for a lot of people. And of course, refined sugar. These are most common, and we often remove them when we're starting. And we can test and not guess with a Vibrant Wellness Food Zoomer. As a wheat zoomer, there's a dairy, there's a corn, there's an egg, or lectins, all sorts of different ones you can order. But we can do inflammatory or anti-inflammatory diet, remove these foods and see how you feel. We can also do a heart rate pulse test called Cocoa Pulse test to see what's going on when you have that food. We can also do a glucose meter as a CGM with NutriSense, or we can do Keto Mojo and test, prick your finger. So there's different options if you can't afford a lab test, because it does cost a lot of money. I think the bundles are about $400. But if you can, save some money, budget, and invest in your health, I find that the wheat zoomer for sure is eye-opener, because you don't realize wheat that is in everything. At least in my Vibrant Wellness Wheat Zoomer, I was off the charts. And then I see a lot of people with endotoxicity, a marker called LPS, lipopolysaccharides, that's elevated a lot of people. So we don't know that we're so inflammatory. So sources of chronic stress can be from these hidden internal sources of chronic stress. So we want to eat real food, nutrient-dense foods. We want to include healthy fats, but not too much. Some people can't tolerate a lot of saturated fats. I know I do better with a higher protein diet with some moderate healthy fats, and getting my vegetables I pick are going to be supporting my liver detox pathways, phase 1 and 2, getting my microbiome foods, so prebiotic and probiotic foods, polyphenols. So I'm going to choose foods that are on purpose, that are beneficial to my gut health. So back in the day, I would be the salad queen, eat this huge bowl of salad and have all these vegetables. And now I rather have, I just had 3 eggs, and some bacon and coleslaw with broccoli sprouts and some bacon and a half avocado. And that was lunch, but it was kind of a breakfast lunch. Or I had a grass-fed burger the other day with a slice of cheese, and try to do goat or sheep cheese or burrata cheese, buffalo. And then I had, what did I eat that with? Coleslaw. And, really going by what foods are in season, but also root vegetables, having some of that russet potatoes. I've been trying to do more for potassium, as I'm low in potassium, and doing sweet potatoes is another option. But trying to allow myself to eat potatoes, because I was so strict of having any carbs for so long that I find that my lab tests say, hey, you need a little bit more of these foods that are rich in potassium to bring my mineral balance up. And I think the more I focus on my exercise program changing a little bit with my age, I'm doing a lot more interval training. That's not going to be fat burning. It's going to be more carbohydrate based. So if you listen to my recent interview with Aaron from Endure IQ, we talked about this. I'm saying, hey, I'm not doing this workout to burn fat. I'm doing it to get faster and stronger. So my fuel source is going to be more carbohydrate, muscle glycogen based. So I'm going to be depleting my glycogen. So maybe I do need a little bit more of nutrient dense carbohydrates as from root vegetables. So anyways, I'm getting off track as usual, but you don't want to have the refined sugars, the processed foods, not eating the pasta and the bagels and the muffins as your carbohydrates. It's more nature's carbs, right? So anyways, we're talking about inflammation, food. So testing and not guessing is great. All right, number 2, pathogens. This is what I find in the GI map or Genova Diagnostics 3-day stool test. Their pathogens can be often unknown about. I mean, I've had pathogens every time I've tested. When I started early on my journey testing in 2013 that I had blastohominus, and then I had something else. And it was more because chronic stress, your guard's down. So you don't have your frontline defense system, military, Navy SEALs, and Army all up there guarding your system. So we need to make sure stress is managed so we don't have these pathogens entering in our body. So general pathogens can be a common cause of internal stress in the body, and they can give you this constant, chronic, low-grade inflammatory response. So that's why we always want to recommend doing a GI pathogen stool test on every client, because you have no clue that there's chronic stress in there, and you're wondering, why am I struggling? Why don't I feel good? Why am I eating and I just still feel lethargic? I find most everyone has elevated H. pylori, and we can do a separate episode on that, but that's going to be an indication of a parasite basically in your stomach, your organ, and you're not able to break down that protein, and protein breaks down into amino acids, and amino acids work in all different ways in our body, including neurotransmitter production. So testing and not guessing our pathogens is super essential to really being fit and healthy from the inside out. And then lastly, we talk about toxic exposure. You want to look at what are you using for your foods, your personal care products, your cleaning supplies, what's in your water, if your tap water, your cookware, your dental amalgams. Really looking at EWG website to find more, and looking at cleaning out your shampoo and your conditioner, your soaps you use, your lotions, your makeup. All that stuff can be filled with toxins. So I've switched to buying all natural. You can use Beauty Counter, or you can go more like to Sprouts, or we have Jimbo's here that I like, and Whole Foods. Or you can buy stuff on my Full Script. They have a lot of clean items too. So you really want to look at toxic-free environment, including what you're putting on your body, your skin as a mouth. So those are sources that can be leading to inflammation. Now we know obesity and stress is related. So all forms of stress, remember, if it's real stress or just perceived emotional and physical stress, can raise your cortisol levels. And if you're highly stressed all the time, like I used to be so intense, if you're just on high alert all the time, you're just on and you don't know how to turn yourself off, well, that can create this elevated cortisol, and why we want to look at cortisol and DHA on your Dutch test. So if cortisol is high and DHA is low or normal, that's a pattern we want to look at, that we're able to see what's going on in your body if you're in a catabolic state. So you're in a constant breaking down instead of building up. So really important part of chronic stress I found as an athlete is, why am I losing muscle? Why did I gain 30 pounds in a few months when I first got my adrenal exhaustion back in 10 years ago? But I was just the best shape of my life coming off of Ironman Hawaii and my best race in Ironman Canada and blah, blah, blah. I suddenly was lean, strong, fastest I've ever been. And then I was a pile of mush in my mind, 30 pounds heavier a few months after that. So why did that happen? It's just that chronic stress accumulated, and my body got into a state of catabolic state with high cortisol and low hormones, that I was in this breaking down over building up. Okay, so stress impacts everything. So if you do have high cortisol, here are some symptoms: high blood sugar, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, low immunity, frequent infections, suppressed gut immunity, digestion issues, poor thyroid function, trouble sleeping, so insomnia, anxiety, you're a little bit just worked up all the time, poor memory, cognitive decline, your heart rate's always high, it's racing, heart palpitations. I know when I first discovered I had adrenal issues, I was doing this 50K trail run, going by my heart rate, and I had to slow way down my heart rate. Usually I would train at 140 something back then, and 140 heart rate, and it kept going up, and I was barely moving. So that was a big red flag. All right, so weight gain, especially around your middle section. Decreased muscle mass. Again, we're in that catabolic state. Decreased bone mineral density, poor wound healing. You get injuries and you just can't heal, and it takes longer. And then second wind of energy at night. You're tired but wired all day and night, and then you can't fall asleep, and then you wake up 2 a.m, you're wide awake. So you get alert, like 2 a.m. feels like it's morning, and it's not. And then low testosterone, part of that catabolic state and those hormone domino effect of our hormones. So low T. Now, again, we want to test everything and see, okay, why are you under stress? Where are those hidden stressors? So hidden as FDN, we talk about hidden stands for hormone imbalances, immune dysfunction, detoxification issues, digestion issues, energy system, and neurotransmitter imbalance, nervous system. So we want to look at everything. So that's why you have to invest in your health to really test and figure out what is actually going on, because you might not be feeling well, but you don't know what's going on, what's causing this metabolic chaos. So cortisol production can be over time be low. And so we think of this as HPA acts as down regulation. So this can be when you pass that being high all the time, then your body gets a compensatory phase. And this is from being in elevated cortisol all the time, and you have some issues and your body is being in that catabolic state for too long. And so the body may choose to lower cortisol production to fight an infection or to fight cancer or to fight from that perceived stress, that perceived threat. So low cortisol is more looking at the why. So anytime we get high or low markers, I'm looking at more, okay, why is this happening? And so that's what, you spend part of the money, and we're paying for a practitioner to help you investigate what's actually going on, because doctors and naturopaths even don't have this time that will dig in and go, okay, why is the cortisol high? Why is it low? Why do you have dysbiosis? Where is this all coming from? Because it's multiple areas, and we have to put the missing pieces of the puzzle together. So we have to gather these clues, gather diet, nutrition logs, look at your exercise log, look at your sleep metrics, look at your Oura Whoop and heart rate variability, and just really look at the whole picture from external sources and internal sources of stress. Okay. So reasons for low cortisol is looking at the why. Why is the brain not signaling the adrenals to produce more cortisol? What is actually going on? So instead of taking a supplement that people do for hormones, for cortisol, for thyroid, it's okay, why is your thyroid low? Why is your cortisol low? Let's figure out why and work on those areas of opportunity rather than just sticking you with some thyroid medication. So chronic stress, chronic infections, chronic inflammation. Remember the word chronic, it's happening all the time. So your body's just constantly in this chronic state of stress. If you're eating too little fat, remember healthy fats help your hormones. They're steroid hormones made from cortisol. If you're too low of carbohydrates, you're not giving your body the nature's carbs it needs for your estrogen and progesterone for women and for your exercise. So you might be doing a lot of anaerobic HIIT training, and maybe you are too low carb because you are going by the guidelines out there for metabolically diseased people and overweight people, that they're not exercising as intensely as you. The normal person does not exercise like this. So also, if your cortisol is finding it on the lower side, remember it's that Goldilocks effect. We don't want it too high, you don't want it too low. But if you're taking a lot of medications that are suppressing cortisol, and that is a big area, especially people are on antidepressants. A lot of people are on antidepressants, and it not only lowers your cortisol, but also depletes your microbiome. So we want to look at what you're eating. Let's start an anti-inflammatory plan. Let's work on getting rid of any sources of gluten, wheat, cow dairy, refined sugars, soy, corn, and eggs can be an issue for people. And really focusing on getting grass-fed beef and wild-caught fish and healthy fats. So we want to get that healthy fat and healthy animal-based protein. And then the carbohydrates are coming from fruit when in season, and starchy vegetables as below the ground, and then vegetables that are good for liver health, and other foods that are good for the microbiome, right? So testing is great. So low cortisol symptoms include dizziness, low libido, allergies, lowered ability to exercise. You have trouble recovering from your workouts. You're craving salt. You have a really poor ability to deal with stress. You get overwhelmed and you just struggle with things that get too crazy. It just gets overwhelming. So we can't handle that stress as well. Depression, anxiety, low blood sugar, low blood pressure, low energy, inability to get through the day without needing that caffeine or any type of stimulants. If you have issues sleeping, that's always a red flag. Pain and inflammation in your body, like achy joints. You're getting sick all the time, so you have poor immunity, and your memory is crappy, poor memory. So this is why I have bad memory. I have to read everything because I can't remember anything. So we want to first work on the holistic method elements. So nutrition and exercise that's right for you. We want to manage our stress. We want to look at our sleep hygiene routine, movement throughout the day, getting some yoga, getting some Pilates, getting walking in throughout the day, especially after meals, getting a little 20-second burst training up the stairs when you can. And then eating an anti-inflammatory food plan that you're not over-restricting, you're not overeating, but I think eating when you have that digestive rest in between meals and not eating close to bed. So it's working on what I always say with clients. Let's look at what you're eating, when, why you're eating, how, because a lot of people are eating in a stress, sympathetic fight or flight. So what you can work on all that, but if you're not digesting and breaking down your food properly because you're in a sympathetic state, you're rushing and doing 10 things at once, you are going to have problems again. And if you're not supporting the liver, bile flow, gallbladder, digestive enzymes from your pancreas, HCl, supplements, or working on H. pylori, we have to find out what's going on first. So exercising, not too much, not too little, the right amount for you. And then females that have hormone cycling through the month, we want to look at follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal phase. We change the workout based on that. And I use that on Training Peaks. So those are some thoughts. I will go into thyroid and thyroid health a little bit more next. So let's hop into the next call on low thyroid and how we don't want to just look at the TSH, T4, T3. We want to look at reverse T3, which is when cortisol is often up or down, the body's under stress, cortisol is going to impact thyroid production. So we get reverse T3 elevated. So I look at that, which you have to usually specially order. And then we'll look at conversion of T4 to T3 in your liver. So it's not just low thyroid or high thyroid. We want to look at, all right, it says it's low, but what is low? If the TSH is high and the T4 and T3 is low, if the T3 is high and the T4 is low, there's all sorts of patterns we look at. So taking medication for thyroid supplement doesn't always work because it could be a result of the liver being congested, that we're not converting T4 to T3, or part of the microbiome dysbiosis is impacting your ability to convert some of that thyroid as well. So that's why we have to look at the whole blood chemistry panel, the GI test, look at your hormone panel, food sensitivities, and see what's actually going on. So that is for today's little thoughts with Debbie Potts, talking about high or low cortisol, testing and not guessing, and figuring out how to create a personalized program based on collection of hidden stressors through lab testing, and then identifying those external stressors with your nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle habits. Okay, so let me know your questions. Head to debbiepotts.net. Chat soon.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.